moment. Do not rush past this. Do not treat this as another voice in the noise. Heaven placed this message in front of you because something inside you has finally shifted, and God is not looking at you with anger today. God is looking at you with happy tears. Listen closely. This is not the kind of message you stumble into by accident. Your spirit has been asking for confirmation, and your heart has been quietly begging for one sign that all of this pain meant something. You did not need another warning. You needed to know that heaven saw the moment you finally understood. For years, you thought God was silent because you were failing. You thought the closed doors meant rejection. You thought the delay meant you missed your moment. But the truth is deeper than that. And if you stay with this, your spirit is going to recognize the lesson that has been circling your life for years. God cried happy tears because you finally stopped fighting the lesson. Not because you became perfect, not because you never felt afraid, not because you had every answer, but because somewhere in the quiet place of your soul, you finally whispered yes to what heaven had been trying to show you. You have carried a strange heaviness lately. It has not been easy to explain. Your body wakes up tired. Your mind keeps moving. Your heart feels full, but not always with sadness. And while the world thinks you are simply overthinking, heaven knows you have been standing at the edge of a major inner shift. You smiled for people who never asked if you were okay. You stayed kind when you had every reason to become cold. You gave grace to people who used your softness against you. And even when you were breaking quietly, you still asked God to help you become better, instead of asking Him to destroy them. That is why this message found you. It is not here to entertain you. It is here to name what your spirit has been feeling. God has been watching the invisible war inside you, and what moved heaven was not how loud you prayed, but how deeply you finally surrendered the need to understand everything at once. There was a season when you needed explanations. You wanted names. You wanted timelines. You wanted God to tell you why they left, why the door closed, why the promise felt delayed, and why your heart kept being pulled away from places you still loved. But now, something in you is different. You no longer need every person to admit what they did. You no longer need every situation to make sense before you obey. You no longer need the old room to bless your exit. And that is the part of you heaven has been waiting to see. The part that finally understands peace is also an instruction. Chosen one, this is why the tears are happy. God is not weeping over your defeat. God is moved by your maturity. The version of you that begged to be understood is giving way to the version of you that can walk away quietly when heaven says enough, even if nobody claps when you leave. Do you feel that pull in your chest? That quiet ache is not only grief, it is the feeling of an old agreement leaving your body. You used to believe love meant staying until you were empty, but now you are beginning to understand that obedience sometimes looks like leaving before bitterness teaches you to hate. You have been in a classroom that did not look like a classroom. It looked like delay. It looked like rejection. It looked like unanswered messages. It looked like waking up in the middle of the night with a heavy heart. But heaven was teaching you through everything that refused to give you closure. This is not punishment. Hear that clearly. This is not God turning His face away from you. This is preparation so deep that your old language could not explain it. You called it loneliness because you did not yet know it was separation for protection. And you called it loss because you could not yet see the rescue. Some of you have been waking between 3 and 4 in the morning. You open your eyes before the sun rises, and for a few seconds the room feels different. You cannot explain it. It feels like your spirit is listening to something your ears cannot hear, and your mind tries to catch up after the moment passes. That was not random. You were not just restless. Your spirit was being stirred while the world was quiet enough for you to notice. Heaven often speaks in the hours when distraction is asleep, and the reason you kept waking was because something in you was being trained to recognize a deeper voice. But for a long time, you woke up and reached for worry. You woke up and replayed old conversations. You woke up and tried to solve what God was trying to reveal. Your mind turned the sacred hour into a battlefield because you had not yet learned that not every stirring is meant to be analyzed. Now you are beginning to understand. That is the shift. You do not have to wrestle every sign into a sentence. You do not have to force every feeling into a plan. Sometimes heaven wakes you not to make you panic, but to remind you that your spirit is still sensitive enough to hear what others ignore. God cried happy tears because you finally stopped calling your sensitivity a curse. You finally started seeing it as discernment. You finally realized that the ache you carried in crowded rooms was not weakness, and the sudden heaviness around certain people was not drama. It was your spirit reading what your eyes could not see. You have been surrounded by people who needed your light but did not honor your boundaries. They loved your help. They loved your forgiveness. They loved the way you could sense what they needed before they asked. But they did not always love the real you, because the real you requires honesty from everyone in the room. That realization hurt. It cut deep. It made you question your own goodness. There were nights when you wondered if being loving had made you foolish, and there were mornings when you promised yourself you would never open your heart like that again. But even then, God did not let your heart turn to stone. You remained soft in a world that rewarded hardness. You remained prayerful in situations that invited revenge. You remained willing to grow, even when the people who wounded you kept pretending nothing happened. And heaven recorded every moment when you chose not to become what hurt you. This is one of the reasons God is moved. You finally understand that your tenderness was never the problem. Your lack of boundaries was the open gate. Your compassion was holy, but your access had to become guarded. You were not told to stop loving. You were taught to stop bleeding for people who worshipped your wound. That sentence may touch something deep. Let it. You have been bleeding quietly for years. You have been giving from places that needed healing. You have been calling exhaustion loyalty, and you have been calling fear patience. But now, the Spirit of God is showing you the difference between sacrifice and self-abandonment. This is not a message of shame. You did what you knew how to do. You loved with the tools you had. You forgave with the strength available to you. And while you were learning, God was not standing over you with disappointment, because He knew the day would come when you would finally see the pattern. That day is closer than you think. In fact, part of it has already begun. You can feel it in the way certain conversations no longer pull you in. You can feel it in the way your silence has become stronger than your explanation, and in the way your spirit no longer begs to return to places that drained you. There is a holy stillness forming inside you. It is not emptiness, it is order. It is the sound of old chaos losing access. You may not know what comes next yet, but you know what cannot come with you, and that one understanding has already changed the atmosphere around your life. God cried happy tears because you finally stopped asking Him to bless what He was trying to remove. For years, you prayed for restoration in places where heaven was arranging release. You begged for old connections to soften, but God was trying to show you that some doors only look closed because angels are guarding them. You did not understand it then. You cried, you waited, you checked your phone, you replayed what you could have said differently. You wondered if your silence was pride, when really, your silence was the first sign that your spirit was learning how to trust God without forcing an outcome. That is a sacred maturity. It does not always feel powerful. Sometimes it feels like sitting alone with trembling hands. Sometimes it feels like walking away while your heart still wants one more conversation. But when you obey without applause, heaven sees a kind of strength that people around you cannot measure. Chosen one, this message is not here to flatter you. It is here to confirm you. There is a difference. Flattery feeds the old self. Confirmation strengthens the obedient self. And what God is confirming today is that your long season of confusion has finally produced understanding that cannot be stolen by another emotional storm. You finally understand that not every delay is demonic. Some delays are divine mercy. God held certain things back because you would have carried old wounds into new rooms, and what looked like waiting was actually heaven refusing to let your next season be contaminated by your last survival pattern. You finally understand that not every rejection is proof that you are unwanted. Some rejection is redirection with protection wrapped around it. People who could not see your value were not always enemies. Sometimes they were simply too small for the assignment God placed on your life. You finally understand that not every silence means abandonment. Some silence is God teaching you to stop begging for noise. You asked for a sign, but heaven wanted to build discernment. You asked for a voice, but God wanted you to recognize the difference between urgency and instruction. This is why your heart has felt both heavy and hopeful. Something ended, but something holy began. You are grieving the version of you that kept trying to earn safety through performance, and you are meeting the version of you that knows rest is not laziness, silence is not weakness, and peace is not selfish. The old version of you kept proving, the new version listens. The old version kept explaining, the new version discerns. The old version kept returning, the new version waits for heaven to open the door, because it finally understands that forced access is not favor. If this is touching your spirit, breathe for a moment. Let your shoulders drop. You have been carrying an invisible argument with God, and the argument was never about whether He loved you. The argument was about whether you would trust His love when His answer did not match your expectation. That is where many chosen ones struggle. You trust God when the door opens. You praise when the sign is obvious. You believe when the promise feels close. But when heaven answers through removal, quiet, delay, or separation, your wounded places start calling protection a punishment. God saw that. He saw every time your trauma translated His mercy as rejection. He saw every time your fear argued with His timing. He saw every time you nearly returned to what had already been exposed, not because you wanted pain, but because familiar pain felt safer than unfamiliar peace. And still, He did not give up on you. He kept repeating the lesson. He kept closing the door gently, then firmly. He kept letting your spirit feel discomfort around counterfeit peace. He kept allowing your appetite for false approval to fade, because He knew one day you would finally stop calling bondage a home. That day has come in ways you may not fully see yet. You are not the same person who entered this storm. You still have questions, but the questions do not own you like before. You still feel emotion, but emotion no longer has full permission to drag you backward. This is the beginning of a clean understanding. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, a clean one. It feels like realizing you do not need to chase what God removed. It feels like knowing your worth without demanding a witness, and walking with God even when the old crowd does not recognize your elevation. Some of you have already noticed this. The things that used to trigger you now feel distant. The messages you used to hope for no longer carry the same pull. The rooms that once made you shrink now make you aware. And when someone tries to pull you back into old confusion, something in you quietly says no. That no is holy. It is not bitterness. It is not pride. It is not revenge. It is the sound of your spirit agreeing with God after years of negotiating, and heaven is responding because your agreement gives God room to move without your fear constantly interrupting the process. God cried happy tears because agreement finally happened. You stopped saying yes with your mouth while your choices kept saying no. You stopped asking for a new life while dragging old patterns into every new opportunity. You stopped calling your exhaustion normal, and you started admitting that peace has requirements. Peace requires boundaries. Peace requires obedience. Peace requires quiet courage. Peace requires refusing the emotional addiction to chaos, even when chaos arrives dressed as love. And for years, you were not ready to hear that without defending the very things that were draining you. But now you can hear it. That is why this message feels different. It is not only giving you information, it is activating recognition. Your spirit is not learning something new as much as remembering what God already whispered through tears, dreams, closed doors, and the ache that would not leave. There were moments when you almost gave up. Be honest. You almost stopped believing there was purpose in your sensitivity. You almost accepted the lie that you were too much, too intense, too emotional, too hard to love, too hard to understand. But heaven never agreed with that lie. You were not too much. You were carrying too much. You were not hard to love. You were surrounded by people who loved access more than intimacy. You were not unstable. You were spiritually overloaded, emotionally overextended, and mentally exhausted from carrying battles that were never assigned to your hands. This is part of the lesson you finally understand. Not every burden is holy. Not every need is your assignment. Not every crying voice is sent by God. Some needs are tests of your boundaries, and some urgent requests are distractions from the quiet instruction heaven already gave you. You used to feel guilty for resting. You used to feel selfish for saying no. You used to feel afraid that if you stopped showing up, everyone would leave. And that fear trained you to betray your own peace so other people would not have to face their own emptiness. But the training is breaking. You can feel it. Something in you is no longer willing to abandon yourself to keep false peace alive. Something in you is no longer available for one-sided loyalty. Something in you has begun to realize that your obedience to God will sometimes disappoint people who benefited from your confusion. That realization is not easy, but it is freeing. It means your life is no longer being run by the fear of being misunderstood. It means you can obey without needing every witness to agree. It means you can let people misread your silence, while heaven reads your heart accurately. God cried happy tears, because your heart finally chose accuracy over approval. That is a major shift. You used to want to look kind. Now you want to be aligned. You used to want to be chosen by people. Now you are beginning to honor the fact that heaven chose you before people had an opinion. Chosen one. There is a version of you that heaven has been protecting for years. That version was not weak. That version was hidden. Hidden under survival. Hidden under people-pleasing. Hidden under overthinking. Hidden under spiritual fatigue. But the hiding season is ending because understanding has arrived. Understanding does not always shout. Sometimes it settles. It lands quietly in your chest. It makes you stop arguing with what you know. It makes you close the door without slamming it. It makes you forgive without reopening access. And it makes you bless people from a distance without handing them the knife again. That is the maturity God is celebrating. Not perfection, not performance, not religious appearance, maturity. You finally understand that love without wisdom becomes leakage, compassion without discernment becomes exhaustion, and faith without obedience becomes a beautiful language spoken by a fearful life. Do not miss this. Heaven is not only saying you survived, heaven is saying you learned. There is a difference. Survival means you came through the fire. Learning means the fire can no longer use the same door to enter your life again. That is why the tears are happy. You have broken a pattern that tried to follow your bloodline. You have interrupted an old cycle of begging for love, staying too long, explaining too much, and mistaking suffering for devotion. You may not see the full fruit yet, but in the unseen realm, a generational chain has already felt the sound of your agreement. That is why the enemy has tried to make you tired this week. That is why distractions came suddenly. That is why old memories resurfaced. That is why certain people seem to sense your shift and tried to pull you into old conversations, because darkness hates when a chosen one finally understands the lesson. But you are not going back. Not this time. Something has changed. Your spirit has seen too much. Your heart has paid too much. Your peace has become too valuable. And when peace becomes valuable to a chosen one, old manipulation loses its favorite weapon. You may still feel tender. That is okay. Tender does not mean weak. Tender means your heart is alive after everything that tried to harden it. But now your tenderness is protected by discernment, and that combination is dangerous to every pattern that depended on your blindness. This is why God is smiling through tears. You did not become cruel, you became clear. You did not become cold, you became guarded. You did not stop loving, you stopped confusing access with love. And that one correction is going to change the way your next season receives you. There are blessings that could not enter while you were still negotiating with old chaos. There are answers that could not settle while your mind was crowded with voices God never assigned to lead you. There are doors that were not delayed because heaven forgot, but because you were still learning how to walk through them whole. Now listen carefully. The next season is not only about what God gives you, it is about who you are when it arrives. A blessing received by an unhealed pattern can become another battlefield, and God loved you too much to let your promise become a place where old wounds repeated themselves with new furniture. That is why the waiting was long. That is why the silence felt heavy. That is why certain prayers seemed unanswered. God was not only preparing the gift, He was preparing the vessel. And now, for the first time in years, your spirit is not only asking for the blessing, your spirit is becoming ready for it. If you receive this, do not just nod quietly. Let your agreement become visible. Comment 777, I finally understand. Not as a performance, not to impress anyone, but as a small seal of agreement that the old confusion no longer has the final word over your life. There is another layer I will share later in this message. It is connected to the noise in your mind, the fog around your focus, and the way many chosen ones lose clarity right before a door opens. There is a simple 7-minute sound practice that can help anchor the mind when heaven begins restoring discernment. Do not worry about that yet. This is not the moment to rush. First, let your spirit receive the message beneath the message. God is not angry that it took you years. God is moved because after all those years, all those tears, and all those almost returns, you finally understand. So stay with me. The next part will show you the sign you kept misreading as rejection. It will explain why certain people had to leave, why certain doors had to stay closed, and why the silence of God was never proof that heaven had forgotten your name. Chosen one. The sign you kept misreading was the silence. You thought silence meant God had stepped back. You thought silence meant heaven had no answer. You thought silence meant you had done something wrong. But now your spirit is ready to hear this. Silence was not absence, it was instruction. God was teaching you how to see without panic. He was teaching you how to listen without chasing noise. He was teaching you how to stand still without calling stillness rejection. And while your wounded places kept asking for proof, heaven was building a kind of trust that does not collapse when the room gets quiet. This is why the closed door hurt so much. You did not only lose access, you lost the story you had built around that access. You had imagined a future there. You had attached hope there. And when God blocked the path, it felt like He was blocking your happiness. But God was not blocking your happiness. He was blocking your old pattern from entering your next season. Some doors do not close because you are unworthy. They close because the version of you who would have walked through them was still willing to shrink, beg, explain, and abandon peace for approval. That is the part you finally understand. A closed door can be mercy, a delay can be protection, a separation can be rescue, a quiet season can be a holy classroom. And when God saw you stop treating every removal as punishment, heaven felt the first breath of your real freedom. You used to ask, why did they leave? Now you are beginning to ask, what did their leaving reveal? You used to ask, why did the door close? Now you are beginning to ask, what was God protecting from entering with me? That shift is not small. That shift is maturity. It means you are no longer living at the mercy of appearances. You are no longer letting a temporary ache define a permanent truth. You are no longer calling every painful moment a spiritual attack, because now you understand that sometimes God removes the chair before you sit in the wrong room. This is the reframe heaven has been trying to give you. What left you was not always taken from you. Sometimes it was taken off you. What rejected you was not always above you. Sometimes it was beneath the assignment on your life, and God allowed the rejection to reveal the mismatch. There were people you begged God to soften. You prayed for their heart. You prayed for their honesty. You prayed for one conversation that would finally make them understand your pain. But heaven was not refusing to answer. Heaven was answering by showing you that their inability to see you was part of the answer. That is painful to accept. It cuts the part of you that still wants fairness. It touches the child in you that wanted someone to turn around and say they were sorry. And God is tender with that part, because He knows you were not asking for control. You were asking for acknowledgement. But acknowledgement from people cannot become your altar. If their apology is required for your freedom, then they still hold a key. God never gave them. If their understanding is required for your peace, then your healing is still chained to a room heaven already told you to leave. That is why God let the silence stretch. He was teaching you to stop needing the wrong witness. He was teaching you that heaven can validate what people deny. He was teaching you that your tears count even when no human court records them, and your obedience matters even when no one claps. Chosen one, you have been waiting for people to confirm a truth your spirit already knew. You knew the energy changed. You knew the love became conditional. You knew the room did not feel safe. You knew your body tightened before your mind had language, but you kept asking for more evidence. God was not angry at you for needing time. He knew you were trying to be fair. He knew you did not want to misjudge anyone. He knew you feared becoming the kind of person who leaves too easily. But discernment is not cruelty, and boundaries are not betrayal. You finally understand that seeing clearly is not the same as judging harshly. You can see a pattern without hating the person. You can acknowledge damage without becoming bitter. You can forgive without reopening the gate. And you can love from a distance without confusing distance with disobedience. This is where many chosen ones have been trapped. They think love must always move closer. They think forgiveness must always restore access. They think being spiritual means staying available to people who keep proving they cannot handle sacred access. But heaven is correcting that lie in you now. Love can bless from a distance. Forgiveness can close a door softly. Mercy can refuse another cycle. Compassion can say no. And when you finally realize that holy love does not require self-abandonment, God saw a chain break that had lived in your bloodline longer than you know. Think about the pattern. Someone hurts you. You explain. They minimize. You feel guilty. You return. They repeat. You pray harder. You blame yourself. Then you call the cycle patience, because you are afraid to admit that what you are tolerating is no longer love, it is bondage. God has been pulling that pattern into the light. Not to shame you, not to embarrass you, not to make you feel foolish for staying too long. He is showing it to you, because a pattern cannot be broken while it is still being protected by your need to be seen as good. You are good. Hear that. Your goodness is not on trial. Your heart is not the problem. Your ability to love is not the problem. The problem was that you kept giving holy access to places where there was no holy stewardship. And what God is teaching you now is how to guard what He gave you. Some people loved your gift but ignored your humanity. They loved your wisdom when they were lost. They loved your prayers when they were afraid. They loved your presence when their life was falling apart. But when you needed care, they treated your needs as an inconvenience. That was not your imagination. That was revelation. You were being shown the difference between connection and consumption. Connection honors exchange. Consumption takes until nothing is left. And God allowed your exhaustion to become loud enough that you could no longer call it normal. This is why your energy changed around certain people. Your body knew before your mind admitted it. Your spirit felt drained before your mouth had the courage to say it. You kept asking why you felt so tired after being near them, But heaven had already answered through the heaviness you kept dismissing. You finally get it. That heaviness was not weakness, it was information. That discomfort was not drama, it was discernment. That sudden desire to leave the room was not pride, it was protection. And the more you honor what heaven is showing you, the less your peace will require permission. God cried happy tears because you stopped arguing with your own discernment. You stopped making excuses for every repeated wound. You stopped calling red flags misunderstandings. You stopped translating disrespect into stress. You stopped protecting people from the truth of what their presence does to your spirit. That is a holy moment. It may not look dramatic, no trumpet may sound, no crowd may notice, but in the hidden place, something powerful happened. Your spirit stopped betraying itself for the comfort of people who were never willing to steward your heart with reverence. This is also why the delay had to happen. You wanted the blessing earlier. You wanted the door earlier. You wanted the relationship, the breakthrough, the restoration, the answer, and the visible reward. But God saw the parts of you that still would have sacrificed everything just to keep the wrong people comfortable. He loved you too much to let a blessing become another stage for your old wounds. He loved you too much to let your gift be used by people who had no respect for your spirit. He loved you too much to give you more visibility before teaching you how to protect your private obedience. Delay was not denial. Delay was discipleship. Delay was the hand of God slowing your feet until your inner life could catch up with your outer assignment. And now that you are beginning to understand, the delay no longer feels like proof that you were forgotten. It feels like mercy that was misunderstood. This is why God is emotional over you. He watched you suffer through lessons you did not have words for. He watched you blame yourself for doors He Himself closed. He watched you cry over people He was removing, and He did not mock your tears because He knew one day you would understand. Now that day is arriving. You are seeing the pattern. You are seeing the rescue. You are seeing the mercy hidden inside the no. You are seeing the training hidden inside the waiting. And every time your perspective changes, the old wound loses another layer of authority over your choices. Do not underestimate what this means. A chosen one who can see correctly becomes very difficult to manipulate. When you no longer confuse guilt with guidance, old tactics lose power. When you no longer confuse chemistry with covenant, old attachments lose power. When you no longer confuse urgency with God, chaos loses power. That is what heaven has been building in you. Sight, not physical sight only, spiritual sight. The ability to perceive what is beneath the surface. The ability to recognize when a door is open but not assigned. The ability to feel when a voice sounds kind but carries confusion. You used to think seeing more would make life easier. But seeing more often makes life lonelier at first. You notice what others ignore. You sense motives before proof arrives. You feel the shift before people admit anything changed. And because you could not explain it, you often turned your discernment against yourself. You called yourself too sensitive. You called yourself suspicious. You called yourself difficult. You told yourself to stop overthinking. But what if the thing you called overthinking was sometimes your spirit trying to slow you down long enough to notice what your heart wanted to excuse? This does not mean every fear is God. It does not mean every uncomfortable feeling is a warning. It means your spirit has been asking to be trained. God has been teaching you the difference between trauma and discernment, between fear and wisdom, between anxious control and quiet instruction. That training takes time. It takes silence. It takes wrong rooms. It takes moments when you ignore the inner check and later realize heaven was trying to protect you. It takes humility to admit that your longing can be loud enough to drown out instruction, and it takes grace to learn without hating yourself. God is not asking you to hate yourself. He is asking you to learn yourself. Learn where you abandon peace. Learn where you confuse intensity with love. Learn where you call chaos passion. Learn where you keep returning because the wound wants a different ending with the same people. That last part is important. Sometimes you do not return because they deserve access. You return because your younger self wants to prove that this time, someone will choose you correctly. But God is healing you so deeply that you will no longer force old characters to rewrite a story they were never assigned to finish. This is what it means to finally get it. You stop begging old doors to become new beginnings. You stop asking broken vessels to carry holy oil. You stop trying to make counterfeit peace feel like covenant peace. You stop calling every familiar place home just because your pain recognizes the furniture. And when heaven saw that understanding settle in you, God cried happy tears. Not weak tears, not helpless tears, holy tears. The kind of tears a father releases when a child finally stops touching the same fire and begins to trust that the warning was always love. You are learning that instruction is love. Correction is love. Protection is love. Delay is sometimes love. Removal is sometimes love. Silence is sometimes love. And once you understand that love does not always feel like comfort at first, you stop accusing God every time He saves you in a way your flesh does not prefer. That is why this season has felt strange. You are not only moving forward, you are being untaught. Old definitions are being removed. Old emotional reflexes are being interrupted. Old prayers are being purified. You thought you were asking for a blessing, but God heard the deeper cry for freedom beneath the blessing. Freedom from needing everyone to understand. Freedom from explaining your obedience. Freedom from carrying what God never assigned. Freedom from shrinking around insecure people. Freedom from proving your innocence to people committed to misunderstanding your growth. Freedom from treating your pain as your identity. That freedom is beginning now. It may not look loud. It may look like not responding. It may look like sleeping peacefully after choosing not to argue. It may look like deleting the message you almost sent. It may look like feeling sad and still not going back. Do not call that small. That is warfare. That is victory in a hidden place. That is the breaking of a cycle. Because every time you refuse to return to a pattern God exposed, you are declaring that your next season will not be built on the same wound that governed your last season. You are not who you were. Let that settle. You may still have memories, but they are no longer masters. You may still feel tenderness, but it is no longer blindness. You may still care, but care no longer means access. That is how a chosen one becomes safe for the promise. God is making you safe for the promise. That is a deeper statement than you realize. Some blessings require capacity. Some doors require emotional sobriety. Some assignments require a heart that can love without leaking. And God had to teach you how to carry the next level without giving pieces of it to people who cannot honor sacred things. This is why certain prayers were delayed. Not because God was unsure, not because heaven was empty, not because you were being ignored. The promise was not the problem. The vessel was being prepared. And preparation often feels like being stripped before it feels like being crowned. Joseph had to be stripped of the coat before he could carry the kingdom assignment. David had to be hidden in fields before he could sit near a throne. Moses had to lose Egypt before he could lead people out of Egypt. God has always trained His chosen vessels in places that look like contradiction. Your contradiction had a classroom inside it. The people who underestimated you taught you not to build identity on applause. The doors that closed taught you not to worship access. The silence taught you not to panic without noise. The delay taught you not to confuse speed with favor. Now you are beginning to bless the lesson. Not because it was painless, not because what happened was right, not because they were innocent, but because God used even the painful things to pull your eyes away from illusions, and now you can see what you could not see when you were begging for the old outcome. This does not excuse anyone who hurt you. Heaven is not asking you to call betrayal love. Heaven is not asking you to pretend neglect was care. Heaven is not asking you to spiritualize disrespect. until it sounds acceptable. Truth does not become bitter just because it names what happened, but truth must lead you forward. If truth only makes you rehearse the wound, it becomes another chain. God is teaching you to tell the truth without living inside the injury. You can say, "It hurt." You can say it was wrong. You can say you deserved better. And then you can still walk free. That is what makes heaven rejoice. You are no longer using pain as a prison. You are allowing pain to become a teacher, then refusing to let the teacher become your home. You are letting the lesson finish its work without letting the wound rename your entire future. Chosen one. You are allowed to outgrow survival mode. You are allowed to stop expecting disappointment. You are allowed to receive good without preparing for betrayal. You are allowed to rest without scanning the room for the next attack. You are allowed to live as someone protected, not merely someone who survived. This may feel unfamiliar. Peace often feels strange when chaos raised you. Rest can feel unsafe when your body learned to stay ready for disappointment. Healthy love can feel boring when inconsistency trained your nervous system to mistake anxiety for passion. But God is re-educating your appetite. He is teaching your soul to desire what is clean. He is teaching your heart to recognize peace before it recognizes intensity. He is teaching your mind to stop chasing what triggers it. And He is teaching your spirit that not every open door deserves your feet. This is why you have felt less impressed lately. Certain things that used to pull you no longer shine the same way. Certain voices that used to move you now sound empty. Certain rooms that used to intimidate you now feel small. It is not arrogance. It is alignment changing your appetite. When your appetite changes, your life changes. You stop feeding on confusion. You stop entertaining emotional crumbs. You stop romanticizing instability. You stop calling every intense connection divine. You stop handing your sacred yes to situations that have never shown the capacity to honor it. That is growth. That is what God saw. That is why heaven is moved. You finally understand that a yes to God will sometimes require a no to what your old self wanted, and the no does not make you unkind. It makes you faithful to the instruction that saved your future. There is a holy difference between desire and assignment. You can desire something that is not assigned. You can miss someone who is not meant to return. You can grieve a door that God still refuses to open. Maturity is not pretending you do not care. Maturity is obeying while you still feel. That is the kind of obedience heaven trusts. Not obedience after feelings disappear. Not obedience after every question is answered. Not obedience after the path becomes easy. But obedience while your heart is still tender, while your eyes are still wet, while your flesh still wants one more sign. God cried happy tears because that obedience appeared in you, quietly, slowly, honestly. You stopped bargaining. You stopped delaying. You stopped demanding that God prove His goodness by giving you what He already showed you would harm your peace. That is not small. That is a deep surrender. And surrender is not defeat. Surrender is alignment. It is the moment you stop fighting the hand that is rescuing you. It is the moment you stop calling the wilderness a mistake. It is the moment you realize that the same God who opens doors also loves you enough to close them. Now, your story is changing. The meaning is changing. The memory is changing. What once looked like abandonment is becoming evidence. What once looked like delay is becoming development. What once looked like rejection is becoming redirection. And what once looked like loss is becoming the place where your discernment was born. You can look back now and see it, not perfectly, but more clearly. The thing that broke you also woke you. The person who left also revealed you. The silence that terrified you also trained you. The waiting that exhausted you also purified what you wanted and why you wanted it. This is why you cannot go back to the old interpretation. You know too much now. Your spirit has seen the pattern. Your heart has heard the lesson. Your peace has tasted distance. And once a chosen one tastes the peace of obedience, Old chaos has to work much harder to look attractive. It will try. Be aware. Old chaos often returns after understanding arrives. It may come through nostalgia. It may come through guilt. It may come through a message that sounds harmless. It may come through a sudden memory that makes you doubt the clarity you fought so hard to receive. But you are not defenseless. You have discernment now. You have language now. You have a witness in your own spirit now. And when the old pattern knocks, you do not need to scream. You can simply remember what God already showed you and let the closed door remain closed. That is power. Quiet power. Mature power. Holy power. It is not the power to control people. It is the power to stop being controlled by the fear of losing them. It is not the power to prove everyone wrong. It is the power to stop needing their agreement before you obey God. This is why heaven is preparing to trust you with more clarity, more peace, more influence, more discernment, more responsibility, because the more you understand the lesson, the less likely you are to turn a blessing into an idol or a relationship into a cage. You are becoming someone who can receive without clinging. You can love without losing yourself. You can serve without bleeding empty. You can forgive without returning to bondage. You can wait without calling yourself rejected. You can be hidden without calling yourself forgotten. That is the fruit of the reframe. The facts may not have changed, but the meaning has changed. And when meaning changes, bondage breaks. The enemy does not only attack events, the enemy attacks interpretation. If he can make you misread protection as punishment, he can make you resist the very hand sent to deliver you. But that tactic is losing power. You are beginning to read your life through heaven, not through fear. You are beginning to interpret delay through preparation, not abandonment. You are beginning to interpret separation through protection, not worthlessness. You are beginning to interpret silence through training, not rejection. God cried happy tears because you are finally seeing with cleansed eyes. Not perfect eyes, not eyes that know everything. Cleansed eyes, eyes that can say, I do not understand it all, but I will no longer accuse God in the middle of a rescue I cannot yet explain. That kind of faith changes the atmosphere. It changes how you pray. It changes how you wait. It changes how you walk into rooms. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you chase. It changes who gets access. And most importantly, it changes what version of you leads your decisions. The wounded version is not allowed to lead anymore. The abandoned version is not allowed to choose anymore. The desperate version is not allowed to interpret every silence anymore. They are being healed, not hated. But they cannot sit in the seat of authority over a life God is trying to restore. The Spirit of God is raising a clearer version of you, a quieter version, a steadier version, a version that does not need chaos to feel alive, a version that can be misunderstood without collapsing, a version that can be loved without begging and corrected without spiraling. This is the version God saw when he cried happy tears, not because you have arrived at the final place, but because you finally turned in the right direction. Heaven rejoices over direction before the world sees destination, because God knows what one true turn can do in the life of a chosen one. So do not despise this small beginning. Do not despise the quiet yes. Do not despise the boundary. Do not despise the closed door. Do not despise the peace that feels unfamiliar. What looks small to people may be the exact moment heaven has been waiting to celebrate. You may still be in process. That is okay. You may still have waves of sadness. That is okay. You may still wonder why it took so long. That is okay. Understanding does not erase grief overnight, but it gives grief a direction so it does not turn into identity. Let the grief move, but do not let it lead. Let the memory speak, but do not let it rule. Let the lesson remain, but do not let the wound become your name. You are not the pain you survived. You are the chosen one who learned how to see God inside the pain without calling the pain God. That distinction matters. God did not cause every wound. God did not approve every betrayal. God did not delight in your loneliness. But He is so powerful that even what was meant to confuse you is now being forced to serve your clarity. That is why the enemy is frustrated. The plan was to make you bitter, but you are becoming wise. The plan was to make you hard, but you are becoming guarded with tenderness. The plan was to make you doubt God, but you are beginning to trust Him in ways that no easy season could have produced. This is not ordinary healing. This is deep reconstruction. God is rebuilding your interpretation system. He is teaching you how to see people, doors, delay, silence, warfare, favor, and yourself through the lens of divine order instead of wounded fear. And once that lens changes, your whole future begins to change with it. The next part will go even deeper. Because your story is not isolated, this pattern has appeared in the lives of chosen vessels before you. Joseph had to learn it. Moses had to learn it. David had to learn it. And when you see the biblical pattern, you will understand why heaven waited until now to reveal the lesson so clearly. Chosen one, your story is not isolated. What you are walking through has a pattern. Heaven has trained vessels this way before. Joseph walked through it. Moses walked through it. David walked through it. And if you look closely, you will see that God often celebrates understanding before the world ever sees elevation. Joseph did not begin in the palace. He began with a dream that made him look foolish to the people closest to him. He carried a promise before he had a position, and that is why his own brothers could not handle the light on his life. They saw the coat, but they did not understand the assignment. You know what that feels like. You have carried something people could sense but could not honor. They saw something different in you, and instead of protecting it, they tried to reduce it. They laughed at your hope. They questioned your sensitivity. They acted as if your calling was imagination. But Joseph did not lose the promise when he lost the coat. Hear that deeply. The coat could be taken, the dream could not. The pit could hold his body for a moment, but it could not hold the word God placed over his life. That is the first pattern heaven wants you to see. Some of you lost the coat. You lost the sign that made you feel chosen. You lost the relationship. You lost the place. You lost the version of your life that made the promise feel visible. And because the outer sign disappeared, you wondered if the inner word had died. It did not die. It went underground. It entered formation. It moved from appearance into character. God was not only preserving the promise, God was building the person who could carry it without being destroyed by the weight of it. That is why Joseph had to learn in hidden places. The pit was not the end. The prison was not the end. The false accusation was not the end. The forgotten favor was not the end. Every place that looked like a contradiction was secretly preparing him to recognize the day of appointment without becoming bitter from the years of delay. That is why your delay matters. If Joseph had reached the palace while still ruled by the pain of betrayal, the palace would have become another place where revenge wore royal clothing. God had to heal the interpretation before he elevated the position, because a wounded vessel can turn favor into a weapon. This is one reason God cried happy tears. He saw you release the need to be proven right. He saw you stop using the future as a courtroom against the past. He saw you begin to desire the promise for purpose, not for applause. That shift is not small. Joseph finally understood when he could look at the people who betrayed him and see that God had been working above their intentions. He did not call their evil good. He did not pretend the pain was beautiful, but he saw that heaven was greater than the hands that tried to bury him. That is your lesson too. God is not asking you to call betrayal love. God is not asking you to call neglect protection. God is not asking you to excuse what wounded you. He is teaching you that what they meant to reduce you can still be forced to serve your preparation. When you finally understand that, the enemy loses a major weapon. He can no longer keep you trapped in the question of why they did it. He can no longer make your life revolve around their motives. He can no longer chain your future to the apology they may never give. That is Joseph's sight. It is the sight of a chosen one who can say, "This hurt me, but it did not cancel me. This delayed me, but it did not destroy me. This exposed them, but it also trained me. And now I can walk forward without making my healing depend on their confession." Moses carried another pattern. He was born under threat, hidden for survival, raised in a system that did not match his spirit, then drawn into a wilderness that looked like exile. Before he could lead people out of Egypt, Egypt had to be removed from his own inner world. That is a heavy truth. Many chosen ones want to lead others into freedom while still carrying the language of bondage. They want to step into calling while still thinking like the place that wounded them. They want God to use them publicly before they allow him to heal them privately. Moses had power, but power without surrender made him dangerous. He saw injustice and reacted with the strength of the flesh. His heart was not wrong to care, but his method needed purification. So God did not throw him away. God took him into the hidden years. Do not despise hidden years. Hidden years are not wasted years. They are years where noise is removed, pride is softened, reflexes are retrained, and the soul learns how to move with God instead of moving ahead of God. The wilderness is where calling becomes clean. Some of you have hated your wilderness. You called it delay. You called it failure. You called it being left behind. You looked at other people moving forward and wondered why your life seemed so still. But heaven was not ignoring you. Heaven was removing Egypt from your nervous system. Egypt is not only a place. Egypt is a pattern. Egypt is fear, dressed as wisdom. Egypt is survival, pretending to be identity. Egypt is working for approval, obeying pressure, hiding your voice, and calling captivity normal because you have not yet imagined freedom without guilt. God had to bring you out of that, not only outwardly, inwardly. He had to show you the places where you still flinched when authority spoke. He had to show you where you still made yourself small. He had to show you where you still felt guilty for wanting a life that did not require constant suffering. This is why the last season felt like stripping. Certain voices lost influence. Certain environments became unbearable. Certain habits no longer gave comfort. You began to feel uncomfortable in the same patterns that once felt normal because God was making bondage feel foreign to you. That is mercy. It may not feel like mercy while it is happening. It can feel like confusion. It can feel like losing yourself. But sometimes you are not losing yourself. You are losing the false self that learned how to survive in Egypt and then called that survival personality your identity. Moses had to stand before a burning bush in the wilderness. Not in the palace, not in applause, not in the crowd, in the lonely place. God often speaks assignment in the very environment you thought proved your life was off track. That should make your spirit tremble. What if the place you called delay is the place where your burning bush appears? What if the quiet you hated is the quiet that finally makes the voice of God clear? What if the season that made you feel forgotten is the exact ground where heaven teaches you your true name? Moses argued with God. He questioned his voice. He questioned his ability. He questioned whether anyone would listen. Does that sound familiar? You have done that too. You felt the pull of calling, then immediately listed every reason you were not qualified, not ready, not articulate, not healed, not enough. But God did not choose Moses because Moses had no weakness. God chose Moses because the assignment was never meant to showcase human confidence. It was meant to reveal divine sufficiency. The weakness did not disqualify him. It became the place where obedience had to depend on God. That is what you finally understand. God was never waiting for you to become flawless. He was waiting for you to stop using imperfection as an excuse for disobedience. He was waiting for you to stop arguing with the assignment every time your insecurity started speaking louder than his instruction. Heaven cried happy tears because you are starting to say yes while still trembling. You are starting to obey without feeling fully ready. You are starting to understand that readiness is not the absence of fear, but the decision to trust God more than the voice that says you cannot. David carried yet another pattern. He was anointed long before he was appointed. Oil touched his head before a throne touched his life. Heaven had already marked him, but the outer world still treated him like the boy in the field. That tension is familiar to many chosen ones. You know what it feels like to carry oil without recognition. You sense something on your life, but your environment still speaks to the old version of you. People reduce you to your history. They treat you according to the field, not according to the anointing that heaven placed on you in secret. David went back to sheep after the oil. Think about that. The prophet came, the anointing happened, heaven confirmed him. Then he returned to hidden service. This teaches a truth many people do not want to hear. A real calling may be confirmed long before it is displayed. That is why you must not panic when nothing changes immediately after a spiritual confirmation. Sometimes God gives the sign first, then sends you back to the field to test whether you will serve with oil on your head and no audience watching your obedience. You have been in that place. You received signs. You felt confirmation. You had dreams. You saw repeated numbers. You heard messages that touched your spirit. Then Monday came, and everything looked ordinary again. The same tasks, the same silence, the same people not noticing. That ordinary place was not proof the confirmation was false. It was proof the confirmation was being tested. Can you remain faithful when the sign is real, but the scene is still humble? Can you carry holy oil without demanding a throne before the appointed time? David had to learn this. He faced Goliath before he wore a crown. He served Saul before he led Israel. He had opportunities to force the promise, but he refused to seize with his flesh what God had promised by his Spirit. That refusal is the kind of maturity heaven trusts. This is where many people fail. They receive a word, then try to manufacture the timing. They receive a promise, then manipulate the path. They receive a glimpse, then panic when process appears. But a chosen one who finally understands does not force what God has already ordained. You are learning that. You are learning not to touch what God has not released. You are learning not to chase what God has not assigned. You are learning not to fight for rooms where your spirit has no peace. You are learning not to crown yourself in a season meant to deepen your roots. David could have killed Saul. He had a moment, he had a chance, he had reasons. People around him could have called it justice. But David understood something that impatient people miss. If God promised the throne, David did not need to become corrupted to obtain it. That is a word for you. You do not need to become manipulative to receive what God promised. You do not need to become hard to be respected. You do not need to become loud to be seen. You do not need to attack what God already exposed. You need alignment. Alignment looks quiet sometimes. It looks like refusing to retaliate. It looks like refusing to beg. It looks like refusing to move before the cloud moves. It looks like letting God defend what you could explain and letting heaven handle what your flesh wants to confront. God cried happy tears because your fight is changing. You are not losing your strength. You are losing the need to waste your strength in battles God did not assign. That is spiritual maturity. That is kingdom training. That is how a chosen one becomes dangerous without becoming destructive. Joseph teaches you that betrayal cannot cancel purpose. Moses teaches you that wilderness can purify calling. David teaches you that anointing must wait for appointment. And together, these patterns reveal why your life has felt delayed, hidden, misunderstood, and strangely protected at the same time. You were not being punished. You were being patterned after vessels who carried weight. The path felt strange because the assignment is not common. The silence felt long because the foundation had to go deep. The waiting felt unfair because your spirit sensed what was coming before your life had space to hold it. This is why heaven kept repeating the lesson. You were being taught, to see through the event into the pattern. The event was the breakup, the closed door, the lost opportunity, the betrayal, the silence, the delay. But the pattern was preparation, purification, separation, protection, and formation. Once you see the pattern, the event loses some of its power. You stop worshipping what happened. You stop asking pain to explain your identity. You stop letting one closed door define the goodness of God. You start saying, this was not the whole story. This was one chapter in a holy process. That is when your spirit begins to breathe again. Not because every question is answered, not because every wound disappears, but because meaning returns. And when meaning returns, endurance becomes lighter, because you are no longer suffering inside a story that says nothing good can come from this. The Bible is filled with people who had to live through the middle. The middle is hard. The middle is where the promise is real but not visible. The middle is where obedience is costly but not celebrated. The middle is where people misunderstand you because they only see the process, not the prophecy. You have been in the middle. That is why your heart has felt stretched. One part of you remembers what God said. Another part of you sees what life looks like. One part of you believes. Another part of you gets tired. And in that tension, God has been teaching you a deeper kind of faith. Not faith that performs for applause. Not faith that only speaks when everything feels certain. Not faith that collapses when emotions rise. A deeper faith. A faith that can whisper, I do not see it yet, but I will not betray what God showed me, just because the middle feels long. That is the kind of faith Joseph needed in prison. That is the kind of faith Moses needed in wilderness. That is the kind of faith David needed while running from Saul. And that is the kind of faith you are being given now, not loud faith, but anchored faith. Anchored faith does not require constant signs. It appreciates signs, but it is not addicted to them. Anchored faith does not need the crowd to agree. It welcomes encouragement, but it does not collapse under misunderstanding. Anchored faith does not chase every open door, because it has learned that peace is a form of guidance. This is where your discernment is becoming sharper. You are not only asking, is this possible? You are asking, is this assigned? You are not only asking, do they want me? You are asking, can they steward what God placed in me? You are not only asking, is the door open? You are asking, is heaven in it? That is a different level of seeing. It is what separates the mature chosen one from the wounded chosen one. The wounded chosen one runs toward anything that feels like relief. The mature chosen one waits for alignment, even when relief is available sooner. This is why some fast opportunities did not satisfy you. They looked good, but your spirit felt unsettled. They sounded promising, but your peace would not rest. People told you not to overthink, but something deeper than thought kept saying, wait. That waiting was not fear every time. Sometimes it was protection. You are learning the difference. This is sacred, because when discernment matures, the enemy cannot use urgency as easily. He cannot rush you into counterfeit doors. He cannot bait you with emotional intensity and call it destiny. He cannot make every empty invitation feel like a divine command. Chosen one, your seeing is being healed. That is why the Bible patterns matter. Joseph had to see beyond betrayal. Moses had to see beyond exile. David had to see beyond delay. You have to see beyond the surface of your own season, because the surface has been lying to your wounded places. The surface says forgotten. The pattern says hidden. The surface says rejected. The pattern says redirected. The surface says delayed. The pattern says developed. The surface says alone. The pattern says separated for instruction. The surface says nothing is happening. The pattern says roots are growing where eyes cannot see. God cried happy tears because you are beginning to believe the pattern more than the surface. That is a miracle of interpretation. It means the old fear is not leading as strongly. It means trauma is losing the microphone. It means heaven can speak to your spirit without every wound interrupting the message. Now there is another layer to this. Scripture gives the pattern, and your lived experience confirms it. But even your mind and body have been showing signs of the same battle. Many chosen ones are not only spiritually weary, they are mentally crowded, emotionally overstimulated, and physically tired from carrying too much internal noise. This is where clarity matters, because when your inner world is loud, even a true instruction can feel confusing. When your mind is foggy, even a divine door can feel threatening. When your nervous system is exhausted, even peace can feel unfamiliar. Because your body has learned chaos longer than it has practiced rest. This is not your fault. Modern life trains the mind to scatter. Constant alerts, emotional pressure, financial concern, family expectations, spiritual warfare, and years of survival can make the inner atmosphere feel crowded. A chosen one may have deep discernment, but discernment can feel buried under noise. That is why some days you know God is speaking, but you cannot settle long enough to hear. You sense the warning, but your thoughts race. You feel the confirmation, but doubt interrupts. You receive a sign, but then your mind creates 10 arguments before your spirit can rest in the instruction. There is a bridge here between spiritual language and brain language. What Scripture calls discernment often moves through attention, clarity, stillness, and inner perception. Researchers have studied states of focus and insight through brainwave activity, and one of the most powerful patterns connected with clarity is called gamma. Gamma is not a replacement for God. Do not hear it that way. Gamma is not your savior. Gamma is not your faith. It is simply one way to describe a God-given capacity for focus, insight, learning, and sudden understanding that many people lose touch with as life becomes heavier. When you were younger, you may have felt this more naturally. Ideas came quickly. Your imagination was alive. You sensed things before adults explained them. You learned fast. You dreamed vividly. You felt connected to meaning in a way that was hard to explain. Then life got loud, and something dimmed. Many chosen ones recognize that sentence. Something dimmed. Not the calling, not the soul, not the love of God, but the clarity around the gift, the mental brightness, the quickness, the intuitive spark, the feeling that life was speaking in a language you could understand. Over time, pressure can bury that. Survival can bury that. Betrayal can bury that. Constant stress can train your mind to scan for danger instead of receive instruction. And when a chosen one lives too long in survival, even heaven-sent guidance can feel filtered through fog. This is why restoration must include clarity. Not only emotion, not only encouragement, clarity. You need the kind of inner quiet where truth can land. You need the kind of focus where you can recognize the next step. You need the kind of stillness where your spirit is not constantly drowned out by mental traffic. Dr. Robert Lake studied the brain for many years, and the work connected to the Genius Song is built around this idea of helping the mind return toward a more awakened, focused state. It is not presented as magic. It is a simple sound-based support for the clarity many chosen ones have been missing. This is not the full moment to talk about it yet. That will come later. But you need to understand why the bridge matters. If God has been teaching you to see, then your mind also needs space to hold what your spirit is receiving. Revelation without clarity can become another source of overwhelm. That is why you must stay for the next part. We have reached the edge of the deeper revelation. God was not crying happy tears only because you survived, prayed, waited, or stayed kind. The real reason cuts deeper than survival, because the old agreement inside you has finally begun to break. In the next part, you will see the hidden blocker that kept you circling the same mountain. You will see why God waited until now. You will understand why certain connections could not come with you, and why heaven began celebrating the moment you stopped protecting the old version of you. Chosen one. Now we have reached the place where the message becomes personal. This is the part your old self may not want to hear. Not because it is cruel, not because it condemns you, but because it will name the hidden agreement that kept you circling the same mountain for years. God did not cry happy tears because you finally got everything you wanted. He did not cry because the battle looked beautiful. He did not cry because everyone who hurt you suddenly understood. God cried happy tears because something inside you finally stopped defending the version of you he was trying to free. That is the truth beneath the whole message. You were asking God to change your life, but part of you kept protecting the patterns that built your pain. You prayed for a new season, while still leaving a quiet door open for the old identity to return and explain why it deserved one more chance. The old version of you knew how to survive. Honor that. It carried you through storms. It helped you keep moving when your heart was shaking. But the old version also learned habits that cannot enter the promise. It learned to beg. It learned to over-explain. It learned to call anxiety love. That version learned to stay where peace was missing. It learned to smile while bleeding. It learned to make itself small around people who were threatened by its light. And because it kept you alive in one season, you almost let it lead you into every season after that. But survival is not the same as assignment. Survival kept you breathing. Assignment requires you to become whole. Survival taught you how to endure pain. Assignment teaches you how to stop building a home inside pain. And that is where the hidden blocker begins to lose its grip. You thought the blocker was them. You thought it was the person who left. You thought it was the family that did not understand. You thought it was the closed door, the delay, the enemy, the jealousy, the betrayal, the false accusation. Those things mattered, but they were not the deepest blocker. The deepest blocker was the part of you that still needed bondage to apologize before you felt allowed to leave. The deepest blocker was the part of you that still wanted the old room to bless your exit. The deepest blocker was the part of you that kept asking pain for permission to become peaceful. Let that land. You were not weak. You were not foolish. You were trained by old wounds to believe that closure had to come from the same place that created confusion. So you waited for people to become honest, not realizing your freedom was waiting for you to become obedient. This is why God kept bringing you back to the same lesson. Not the same pain, the same lesson. Different faces, same pattern. Different rooms, same heaviness. Different promises, same inner alarm. Different opportunities, same lack of peace. Heaven was asking, will you finally trust what I show you? For a long time you argued with the showing. You sensed the truth, then explained it away. You felt the heaviness, then blamed yourself. You noticed the pattern, then called it coincidence. You heard the warning, then asked for one more sign, because part of you was afraid of what obedience would cost. Obedience would cost the fantasy. That is what made it hard. Not only the person, not only the place, not only the door, the fantasy. The story you hoped would finally prove you were worth choosing, worth protecting, worth telling the truth for, worth staying for. God saw that fantasy. He knew why you held it. He knew it was not pride. He knew it was an ache. He knew there was a younger part of you still hoping the same kind of pain would end differently this time. And he was gentle, but he did not lie to you. The truth was simple. Some people cannot become the proof of love your wound is looking for. Some rooms cannot become safe just because your heart is sincere. Some doors cannot become divine just because you prayed beside them. Some endings are mercy, even when your emotions call them loss. This is what you finally get. You finally understand that God is not required to restore what He revealed. He can expose a thing and still ask you to leave it closed. He can show you the truth and still not give you a conversation. He can heal you without making them confess. That understanding breaks the spell. It breaks the loop of waiting. It breaks the addiction to emotional revision. It breaks the need to keep touching the wound to see if it still hurts. It breaks the false hope that says, Maybe if I explain it better, they will finally become safe for me. Chosen one, you have explained enough. You have begged enough. You have proven enough. You have returned enough. You have shrunk enough. Heaven is not asking you for one more performance. Heaven is asking you to let your obedience be louder than your need to be understood. This is where God saw the shift. It happened quietly. It may have happened when you did not respond. It may have happened when you did not chase. It may have happened when you finally stopped rehearsing the conversation in your mind and chose peace instead of another imaginary trial. It may have happened when you looked at the same door and no longer felt the same pull. It may have happened when you felt sadness but did not mistake sadness for instruction. It may have happened when you admitted, "I miss it, but I am not assigned to return." That is maturity. That is the moment heaven recognized. Not when you stopped feeling, not when you became numb, not when you became harsh, but when you could feel deeply and still obey clearly. When you could grieve honestly and still refuse to betray your peace again. God cried happy tears because the old agreement cracked. The agreement that said your value depends on being chosen by those who mishandled you. The agreement that said you must keep proving your heart. The agreement that said leaving makes you unloving. The agreement that said peace must wait until everyone understands. That agreement is breaking now. You can feel it. It may feel like relief and grief at the same time. It may feel like breathing after years underwater. It may feel like losing a familiar prison. Do not be afraid of that feeling. Freedom often feels strange before it feels safe. You are not losing love. You are losing distortion. You are not losing softness. You are losing leakage. You are not losing compassion. You are losing access without discernment. You are not losing faith. You are losing the habit of calling every open wound an altar. This is why the enemy fought your clarity so hard. Confused chosen ones are easier to drain. Confused chosen ones keep returning. Confused chosen ones call warning signs fear. Confused chosen ones give sacred energy to counterfeit assignments. But a clear, chosen one becomes very hard to control. A clear chosen one can say no without hatred. A clear chosen one can walk away without revenge. A clear chosen one can forgive without reopening the gate. A clear chosen one can love without handing over the keys. That is the version of you heaven has been forming. But there is another truth. The enemy was not only fighting your future, he was fighting your interpretation. Because if he could make you misread preparation as punishment, you would resist the very process that was saving you. If he could make you misread protection as rejection, you would run back to danger. That is why your mind was attacked with fog. That is why your heart was attacked with doubt. That is why you felt tired right before clarity came. That is why old emotions rose when you were close to breakthrough. Confusion is often the last smoke cloud before discernment becomes stable. But now the smoke is clearing. Not because every outward situation has changed, because your inner sight is changing. You are no longer asking, "Why did this happen to me?" with the same helplessness as before. Now you are beginning to ask, "What did God teach me that I can never unsee?" That question is powerful. It turns pain into wisdom. It turns rejection into redirection. It turns silence into training. It turns waiting into formation. It turns loss into separation for purpose. It does not make evil good, but it forces evil to surrender its claim over your identity. The old version of you needed every ending to be explained. The healed version can obey without a full report. The old version needed everyone to see your heart. The healed version knows heaven saw it first. The old version needed to be picked. The healed version remembers it was already chosen. This is the moment the title was pointing toward. God is crying happy tears because you finally get it. You finally understand that the lesson was never only about them. It was about who you became while God was removing what could not steward your destiny. It was about whether you would keep calling chaos home. It was about whether you would keep letting fear interpret divine timing. It was about whether you would keep using your gift to rescue people God was exposing. It was about whether you would finally trust peace more than familiarity. For years, you kept choosing familiarity, not because you wanted destruction, because familiarity felt predictable. Even when it hurt, you knew its rhythm. You knew the silence. You knew the disappointment. You knew the apology that never came. You knew how to survive inside it. Peace felt unfamiliar. Peace felt too quiet. Peace felt like waiting for something bad to happen. Peace felt like emptiness, because your body had been trained to recognize chaos as connection. So when God offered peace, part of you did not know how to receive it. Now you are learning. Slowly, tenderly, honestly. You are learning that peace is not a trap. You are learning that rest is not laziness. You are learning that silence is not abandonment. You are learning that a calm door may be more divine than an intense one. This is why God is patient with you. He knew you had to be retrained. He knew your nervous system had to stop confusing anxiety with urgency. He knew your spirit had to learn the sound of clean instruction. He knew your heart had to stop mistaking emotional chaos for proof of depth. And now, the retraining is working. The things that once pulled you are losing shine. The voices that once controlled your mood are losing weight. The approval that once felt like oxygen now feels smaller. The old room still exists, but it no longer feels like your only option. That is deliverance. Not always a loud deliverance. Sometimes deliverance is not falling on the floor. Sometimes deliverance is no longer checking. Sometimes deliverance is eating in peace. Sometimes deliverance is sleeping through the night. Sometimes deliverance is seeing a message and feeling nothing pull you backward. Do not underestimate quiet deliverance. Heaven does not. God saw the day you did not react. God saw the hour you chose not to spiral. God saw the moment you wanted to explain yourself, but instead placed your dignity back into His hands. That was a holy victory. People may not know what it cost you. They may not know how many times you almost returned. They may not know how loud the old desire was. They may not know how much courage it took to stay silent. But heaven knows, and heaven is not confused about your progress. This is why you do not need the crowd. You do not need the old witnesses. You do not need the people who misunderstood the process to validate the result. Heaven has been watching the hidden war, and the tears of God are not performative. They are covenant recognition. God recognized the moment your yes became real. Not spoken only, real. Your yes became real when your choices changed. Your yes became real when you stopped feeding the cycle. Your yes became real when you stopped asking for new fruit while watering old roots. That is the difference between wanting change and becoming changed. Many people want change. Fewer people allow God to remove what makes the old life possible. You allowed the removal to hurt without running back to cancel the surgery. You stayed on the table. That is why heaven is moved. There were moments you wanted to interrupt the healing. You wanted to grab back the thing God removed because absence hurt. You wanted to text, return, explain, reopen, negotiate, or prove. But something deeper held you back. That deeper thing was not pride. It was emerging obedience. Emerging obedience feels uncomfortable at first. It does not always feel like power. It feels like trembling hands choosing the right thing. It feels like tears without regression. It feels like missing someone without making them your master. It feels like wanting comfort and still choosing truth. This is the kind of obedience God can build upon. Because if you can obey in the hidden place, you can be trusted in the visible place. If you can honor peace when nobody praises you, you can carry favor without letting applause become your guide. The next season will require that. It will require clarity. It will require boundaries. It will require the ability to sense counterfeit before it enters your inner court. It will require the strength to leave some doors unopened, even if they look beautiful from a distance. Do not think every open door after this is from God. Elevation attracts invitations. Healing attracts observers. Light attracts both alignment and counterfeit. When a chosen one begins to rise, not everyone who appears is sent to support the assignment. Some come to study the access point. That is why the lesson had to finish before the blessing increased. You needed to learn the difference between attention and honor. You needed to learn the difference between admiration and stewardship. You needed to learn the difference between opportunity and assignment. You needed to learn the difference between noise and instruction. Now your spirit can feel those differences more quickly. That is a gift. Do not silence it. Do not apologize for it. Do not explain it to people who benefit when you doubt yourself. Discernment does not need to be rude to be firm. It simply needs to be obeyed. The old version of you asked everyone else for permission to trust what you sensed. The new version brings what it senses before God, waits for peace, and moves with quiet confidence. That is a major transformation. That is why the atmosphere around you feels different. Some people will not like this version. Let them struggle. Some people will say you changed. Let them be accurate. Some people will call your boundary cold. Let them misunderstand. You are not becoming hard. You are becoming unavailable for the confusion that once fed on your softness. That sentence is a key. You are becoming unavailable. Not hateful, not bitter, not superior. Unavailable. Unavailable for emotional games. Unavailable for one-sided loyalty. Unavailable for spiritual noise. Unavailable for relationships that require you to abandon what God just taught you. God cried happy tears because you are finally unavailable for the old trap. You finally recognize the bait. You finally see that not every person who misses your light deserves your access. You finally understand that being missed is not the same as being valued. This understanding may bring grief. Let it come. Sometimes grief arrives after clarity because your heart is saying goodbye to the dream, not only the person. You are grieving what you hoped they would become. You are grieving the version of the story that would have made the pain feel worthwhile. God is not rushing that grief, but He is also not letting grief become a doorway back into bondage. You can mourn without returning. You can cry without reopening. You can bless without chasing. You can remember without rebuilding the altar where your peace was sacrificed. That is the holy balance. Tenderness with truth, mercy with boundaries, love with discernment, hope with obedience. This balance is what makes the next version of you stable. Without it, you would keep swinging between hard walls and open gates, between isolation and overgiving. But God is stabilizing you. He is teaching you to stand in the middle with wisdom. You do not have to hate people to protect yourself. You do not have to expose everything to be free. You do not have to become unreachable. You only have to stop giving holy access to unhealed patterns. This is what you finally understand. Access is sacred. Your energy is sacred. Your attention is sacred. Your yes is sacred. Your peace is sacred. Your calling is sacred. And if God gave you something sacred, then guarding it is not selfish. It is stewardship. Stewardship is the word for this season. Not striving, not begging, not proving. Stewardship. You are learning to steward your mind, your peace, your body, your prayer life, your time, your discernment, your relationships, and your response when old pain tries to demand leadership again. That is why God allowed certain tests. A test is not always there to show God what is in you. Sometimes it is there to show you what is no longer in control. The old temptation appears, and you realize it can knock, but it cannot command you like before. That realization is powerful. It means your healing has substance. It means your growth is not just words. It means the lesson has moved from the mind into the body, from the body into the choices, and from the choices into the atmosphere you carry. You are beginning to carry a different atmosphere. People may sense it before they understand it. Some will feel peace around you. Some will feel exposed. Some will feel drawn. Some will feel offended. That is not your problem to manage. Your assignment is not to dilute the clarity God gave you. You spent too many years diluting yourself. You softened the truth so others would not feel confronted. You hid your discernment so others would not feel uncomfortable. You swallowed your no so others could keep their yes. But that version cannot carry the next assignment. The next assignment requires truth with love. It requires boundaries with grace. It requires discernment without paranoia. It requires courage without cruelty. It requires you to stop confusing humility with self-erasure. God does not get glory from you pretending to be less than what He formed. That is another hidden blocker, false humility. You thought shrinking was holy. You thought hiding your strength made you kind. You thought staying quiet while your spirit screamed was patience. But sometimes humility is not making yourself small. Sometimes humility is agreeing with what God says you are. God says you are chosen. God says you are being refined. God says you are not the old wound. God says you are not the rejection. God says you are not the delay. God says you are not the opinion of people who only knew the version of you that had not yet learned boundaries. Can you agree with Him? That is the question. Not can you perform for Him. Not can you earn His attention. Not can you prove your worth. Can you agree with heaven when heaven speaks a higher name over you than your pain feels ready to accept? This agreement is what made God cry happy tears. You finally stopped calling yourself what the wound called you. You finally stopped interpreting yourself through abandonment. You finally stopped making your identity bow before the people who mishandled your softness. You finally started believing God more than your history. That is not shallow encouragement. That is warfare. Identity is a battlefield. If the enemy can keep your name tied to what happened, he can keep your future tied to fear. But when you accept the name heaven gives, the old accusation loses legal weight in your inner world. You are not the abandoned one. You are the chosen one. You are not the forgotten one. You are the hidden one. You are not the rejected one. You are the redirected one. You are not the too sensitive one. You are the discerning one. You are not the delayed one. You are the prepared one. Let those words settle. Do not rush. Your spirit needs to hear them more than once, because lies were repeated over you for years. Healing often requires truth to be repeated with the same persistence that pain used to repeat the lie. So receive it again. You are not what happened. You are the one who learned. You are the one who stayed tender. You are the one who did not become cruel. You are the one who finally stopped negotiating with the lesson. You are the one heaven watched in secret and said, "Now they are beginning to understand." This is why the next door can open differently. Not because life will never test you again. Not because people will never disappoint you again. But because the version of you who used to hand over authority to every emotional storm is not leading the journey anymore. A clearer version is rising. A steadier version is rising. A prayerful version is rising. A version that can pause before reacting is rising. A version that can sense a counterfeit and not entertain it for comfort is rising. A version that can receive love without losing itself is rising. And this rising must be protected. That is where many people miss it. They receive revelation, but they do not protect the clarity that came with it. They have a powerful moment, then return to the same mental noise, the same distractions, the same emotional inputs, the same environments that clouded their discernment before. Do not do that. Revelation is a door, but clarity helps you walk through it. Understanding is a gift, but stewardship keeps the gift from being swallowed by old patterns. When heaven opens your eyes, you must care for the atmosphere of your mind with intention. This is why the mind matters, not more than the spirit. With the spirit, a noisy mind can make divine instruction feel distant. A foggy mind can make peace feel suspicious. A scattered mind can make a clear door look confusing. And many chosen ones lose momentum because clarity is not protected after breakthrough. You have felt that before. A message touches you. A prayer awakens you. A sign confirms you. For a moment, everything is clear. Then the next day comes with pressure, alerts, old emotions, messages, responsibilities, and suddenly the clarity feels buried under the noise again. That cycle is not your destiny. It is a pattern that can be interrupted. Later, you will be guided toward a simple support that helps many people create a quiet space for the mind to settle and the spirit to listen. It is not a replacement for prayer. It is an anchor for clarity. For now, understand the principle. You cannot keep feeding the same noise and expect the same revelation to stay bright. You cannot keep giving your attention to confusion and then wonder why discernment feels heavy. You cannot keep dragging your mind through chaos and call it normal. God cried happy tears because you finally understand the lesson. Now heaven wants you to protect the understanding. Protect it from old voices. Protect it from urgency. Protect it from guilt. Protect it from counterfeit peace. Protect it from the mental fog that always tries to return after a holy moment. This is not fear. This is stewardship. When a door opens, you do not leave your treasure in the street. When a seed is planted, you do not throw it into a storm and call that faith. You guard what God gives because you know the value of what was restored. Your clarity is valuable. Your peace is valuable. Your discernment is valuable. Your obedience is valuable. Your new yes is valuable. Your healed no is valuable. Your quiet confidence is valuable. And if the last season taught you anything, it taught you that sacred things must be guarded. So hear this before the final part. God is not only celebrating what you finally understood. God is preparing you to live from it. The tears are not the end of the story. They are the sign that a new level of trust has opened, and the next part will show you how to carry that clarity without losing it to the old noise. Chosen one, now that heaven has opened your eyes, you must protect what has been restored. Revelation is sacred, but revelation must be guarded. Clarity can arrive in one holy moment, then become buried again if your mind returns to the same noise that kept you confused for years. God is not only showing you the lesson, He is teaching you how to live from it. That means your mind, your spirit, your attention, and your peace must come into agreement. You cannot keep feeding chaos and expect discernment to stay bright. This is why the next instruction matters. Not because you need another burden, not because you need another ritual, not because you need to perform for heaven. It matters because many chosen ones receive a powerful word, then lose the clarity of it when mental fog and old patterns return. You know that feeling. You hear a message and your spirit wakes up. You pray and something settles. You see a sign and your heart knows. But then the day gets loud, the phone lights up, old emotions return, responsibilities press in, and the clarity that felt so strong begins to feel distant. That cycle is not random. Your spirit may be willing, but your mind has been trained by years of pressure. It has been trained by urgency, disappointment, alerts, survival, overthinking, and emotional exhaustion. When the inner atmosphere is crowded, even the voice of peace can feel hard to recognize. That is why I mentioned the 7-minute sound practice earlier. I did not want to rush it. I did not want to break the sacred flow of this message. But now that the lesson has been revealed, you need to understand the tool that may help you protect the clarity heaven is restoring. It is called the Genius Song. It is a digital audio track created to be heard through headphones for 7 minutes a day. It is simple. You sit down, you listen, you allow your mind to settle. You do not need a complicated meditation routine, and you do not need to force your thoughts into silence. The Genius Song is built around brain entrainment. That means the sound pattern is designed to help guide the brain toward a more focused state. The core focus is gamma, a brainwave pattern often connected with insight, learning, clarity, focus, intuition, and those sudden moments when truth seems to click inside you. Do not misunderstand this. This is not a replacement for God. This is not a replacement for prayer. This is not a shortcut around obedience. It is simply a support, a physical anchor for the mind, so the clarity your spirit is receiving has a quieter place to land. Think of it this way. God can speak in a storm, but sometimes he still leads his people into quiet places. Heaven can reach you anywhere, but a crowded mind often struggles to hold instruction. The genius song is not the source of revelation. It can become a small daily space where noise begins to lose power. Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years in neuroscience, studying how sound and brainwave patterns can influence focus and mental state. The work behind this track points toward what major research circles have explored in different ways, including places like Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Princeton, Harvard, and other leading research universities. The reason this matters for a chosen one is simple. You were never ordinary. Many of you remember being more sensitive as a child. You learned quickly. You sensed the room. You dreamed vividly. You noticed patterns. You felt things other people ignored. And your inner world was alive in a way adults could not always understand. Then life got loud. The system got loud. Stress got loud. Betrayal got loud. Survival got loud. Little by little, the brightness around your gift became covered by pressure. The calling did not disappear, but the clarity around the calling became harder to reach. That is why Gamma is important in this context. It gives language to something many chosen ones already feel. There is a God-given capacity inside you that has not been destroyed. It has been buried under noise. The Genius Song is designed to support that capacity by helping the mind return toward focus and inner stillness. Some people call that clarity. Some call it flow. Some call it intuition. Some call it finally being able to hear themselves again. In spiritual language, it can feel like the fog lifting enough for discernment to become cleaner, calmer, and easier to trust. The tool is short for a reason. 7 minutes, not an hour. Not a whole morning routine, not another performance. 7 minutes with headphones, allowing the sound to create a focused atmosphere around the mind. For many chosen ones, that matters because exhaustion has made complicated routines feel impossible. There are people who have tried long meditations and could not stay consistent. Others tried spiritual retreats, online courses, apps, journals, affirmations, and still felt the same fog return. Some even paid for therapy sessions or high-level focus methods. But none of those things were designed specifically around Gamma support. A meditation app can cost around $15 every month. A single therapy session can cost around $150. An online growth course can cost $100 to $200. A weekend spiritual retreat can reach $400 to $800, and professional brain training clinics can cost even more over time. Those things may help some people. This is not about attacking them, but most of them do not aim directly at Gamma in a simple daily sound format. The Genius Song is different because Dr. Robert Lake compressed the core idea into one 7-minute audio track that can be used at home. The normal price is $49. For viewers of this message, it is available for $39 as a one-time payment. No subscription, no shipping, no waiting for a package. It is digital, so access is delivered through email, and you can begin using it without rearranging your entire life. That matters because the next season needs consistency, not pressure. A chosen one does not need one more heavy demand. You need a simple anchor that fits into real life. 7 minutes before the day becomes loud. 7 minutes when the mind feels crowded. 7 minutes to practice returning to clarity instead of surrendering to chaos. There are also 4 bonuses included. The first is Genius Child, valued at $19, a short audio created with children in mind, for families who want to support focus and calm early. The second is a classic book valued at $20, connected to deeper principles of wealth, thought, and practical inner direction. The third bonus is a guided visualization valued at $29. It walks through important areas of life like finances, love, health, and happiness, so your mind is not trying to imagine a better future alone. The fourth is a 5-habit infographic valued at $12, made to help you keep the new clarity active in daily life. Together, the bonuses carry $80 in value. That is separate from the 7-minute core audio itself. So the structure is simple. You receive the Genius song, the 4 bonuses, and the guidance around how to begin, while the viewer price remains $39. This is not being shared as a random product. It is being shared because the message of this video is clarity. God cried happy tears because you finally understood. But now that you understand, you must not let the same mental fog, stress, and emotional noise drag you back into the old interpretation. More than 18,366 people have used the Genius song. Even more important, the refund rate is under 4%, which means over 96% continued past the guarantee window. That does not mean everyone has the same experience. It means the quality signal is strong enough to notice. Some people feel a shift quickly. Some feel calmer after the first few uses. Some notice focus returning over days. Others experience a slower change after several weeks, where they suddenly realize they are not reacting the same way, not spiraling the same way, and not losing themselves in old confusion like before. That slow change is still change. Do not despise it. A chosen one often wants a dramatic sign, but God sometimes restores through quiet consistency. One day, you realize the old voice is not as loud. One day, you notice your decision is cleaner. One day, you choose peace without fighting yourself for hours. That is the kind of support this track is meant to offer. Not hype, not pressure, not a promise that every problem disappears. A daily place where your mind can begin practicing. Return to focus. Return to stillness. Return to inner order. Return to the clarity heaven has already started awakening. The guarantee is also important. You have 90 days to try it. If it is not right for you, you can request a full refund. No conditions, no need to send anything back because it is digital. And you still keep all 4 bonuses valued at $80, even if you decide it is not for you. That matters because this should not feel like pressure. It should feel like a protected invitation. The purpose of the guarantee is simple. If you give your time to this practice and it does not serve you, you are not punished for trying. You keep the bonuses as respect for the time you invested. There is one warning. Please listen carefully. There are counterfeit pages and imitation versions using names that sound similar. Some are just ordinary sounds with no real brain entrainment design. Some are incomplete. Some do not include the bonuses. Some do not include the guarantee. Do not search for it on Amazon. Do not search for it on YouTube. Do not search for it on Spotify. Do not trust random pages using the name. The only place I can point you toward the original version with the real audio, the 4 bonuses, and the guarantee is the verified link in the description and the pinned comment. That warning is not fear, it is protection. If something is meant to support your clarity, you should not begin with confusion about whether you found the right version. Use the link connected to this message because the original path matters when counterfeit voices are trying to borrow the language of truth. Now pause for a moment. Do not rush. Put one hand over your heart if you can. Take one slow breath. Let your body understand that this is not about a purchase. This is about whether you are willing to protect the clarity that heaven fought so long to restore in you. Ask yourself honestly, am I ready to stop living under the old noise? Am I ready to give my mind a daily space to become quiet? Am I ready to honor the lesson instead of returning to confusion? If your spirit says yes, you already know the next step. The verified link is in the description and the pinned comment. Go there only if your spirit recognizes this as an anchor for the season you are entering. There is no need to force anything. There is no need to impress anyone. Let obedience be quiet, clean, and personal. And for those who already know, do not wait until the old fog returns to take the clarity seriously. Do not wait until another emotional storm proves why you needed an anchor. When heaven gives understanding, stewardship begins immediately. Protect what was restored while the lesson is still fresh in your spirit. Now let us seal this message. Because the tool can support clarity, but your agreement with God is the foundation. The sound may help your mind settle, but your spirit must still say yes. Your future does not belong to fog. Your peace does not belong to old patterns. Chosen one, breathe again. Let the old weight loosen. You are not who you were when this season began. You are not the same person who begged for doors God was closing. You are not the same person who called chaos love. You are not the same person who needed pain to apologize before you walked free. You finally understand that sentence is a door. You finally understand that silence was not abandonment. You finally understand that delay was not denial. You finally understand that separation was not always rejection. You finally understand that peace can be an instruction, and obedience can still be holy even when it hurts. God is not crying because he lost hope in you. God is crying happy tears because hope has taken root in you again. Not fantasy, not denial, not blind optimism, holy hope. A hope that has eyes. A hope that has boundaries. A hope that no longer needs the old room to approve the new assignment. So repeat this in your spirit. I receive the lesson. I release the old agreement. I will not call bondage love anymore. I will not call confusion destiny anymore. I will not call delay rejection anymore. I will not call silence abandonment anymore. I will not call my discernment weakness anymore. I agree with heaven over my identity. I am chosen. I am being refined. I am being restored. I am being prepared. I am not forgotten. I am not rejected. I am not too late. I am not too broken. I am not too sensitive. I am learning how to see. Let those words enter the deep places. Let them touch the version of you that stayed too long. Let them touch the child in you that wanted to be chosen correctly. Let them touch the tired part of you that kept asking God why the road had to be so lonely. You are not alone. Heaven has been present in ways you did not recognize. Angels have guarded doors you cried over. Mercy has blocked paths you begged to enter. Grace has covered mistakes you still replay. And the Father has watched your slow surrender with tenderness deeper than words can carry. This is why the tears are happy. You are coming into agreement. You are no longer asking God to bless the identity He is healing you from. You are no longer demanding that heaven decorate your prison. You are no longer mistaking familiar chains for sacred commitments. A new clarity is forming. Guard it. A new peace is growing. Guard it. A new discernment is rising. Guard it. A new yes is being born. Guard it. A new no is becoming holy. Guard it. Because what God gives in secret must be protected before it becomes visible. There will be tests after this message. Do not be surprised. Old patterns may knock. Old voices may try to return. Old guilt may ask for access. Old fear may whisper that you are being too much. But you have seen the lesson now, and what you have seen cannot be unseen. When the old pattern knocks, remember Joseph. The coat can be taken, but the promise remains. When the wilderness feels long, remember Moses. Hidden years can purify the voice that will one day lead others. When appointment feels delayed, remember David. Oil can be real before the throne appears. And remember yourself. You survived the confusion. You endured the silence. You walked through the delay. You wept through the loss. You stayed tender after betrayal. You kept seeking God when your heart had questions. And now, for the first time in years, you are not only surviving the lesson, you are understanding it. That understanding is your threshold. Step over it with reverence. Do not drag old interpretations across the line. Do not carry every old voice into the new room. Do not let guilt become your guide. Do not let fear become your prophet. Let God lead the part of you that finally knows peace is allowed. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, comment 777. I finally understand. Let that be your seal of agreement, not for performance, not for attention, but as a witness that the old confusion will not keep naming your future. If this message found you in the exact season of your life, let it remain close. Return to it when doubt gets loud. Share it with another chosen one who has been calling delay rejection, who has been grieving a closed door, who needs to know that God is not angry. He is still guiding. And if your spirit recognizes the support I shared, the verified link for the Genius song is in the description and the pinned comment. Use only that path. Let it become one small daily space where your mind can settle, your focus can return, and your discernment can breathe without being buried under noise. But above every tool, above every sound, above every practice, remember this. God wanted your heart before He wanted your progress. God wanted your trust before He wanted your performance. God wanted your agreement before He wanted your public elevation. And today, something in you has finally agreed. You finally get it. Heaven saw it. God saw it. The tears were not sorrow. The tears were recognition. A father watching a beloved child stop touching the same fire. A father watching a wounded heart choose wisdom. A father watching a chosen one finally become safe for the promise. Walk forward now. Not loudly, not desperately, not with the need to prove anything. Walk forward clean. Walk forward guarded. Walk forward soft but discerning. Walk forward grateful. Walk forward with the quiet authority of someone who no longer needs chaos to feel chosen. Your next season will not be built on the old wound. Your next yes will not be ruled by fear. Your next door will not require self-abandonment. Your next connection will not demand the death of your peace. Your next assignment will not be carried by the version of you that forgot how sacred you are. God is restoring your sight. God is restoring your clarity. God is restoring your inner order. God is restoring the part of you that used to hear Him before life got loud. And as that restoration continues, you will understand even more why the waiting was not wasted. So rest tonight. Let your body receive what your spirit has heard. Let the old argument end. Let the need to explain soften. Let the door stay closed if heaven closed it. Let the new thing come without dragging the old pattern behind it. You are loved, you are seen, you are covered, you are being led, you are not behind, you are not abandoned, you are not disqualified, you are not too late. You are standing at the edge of a clearer life, and heaven is not disappointed in you. Heaven is rejoicing over you. God is crying happy tears because you finally understand. Now protect the understanding, walk in the lesson, guard the clarity, honor the peace. And when the old life calls your name,